My brothers and sisters, good morning. Today's message to you that I would like to share with you, I would like to focus on the first reading in particular and weave it together with our gospel this morning. For we hear in the first reading of a generous woman. The first reading, the passage says, one day Elisha went to Shem where a wealthy woman lived. And the passage says, a wealthy woman. And I'm asking myself, wealthy in what way or in which way? Wealthy how? What did this woman have which made her wealthy? And when I reflect, I find that she was rich in love. She was rich in compassion, for she reflected the needs of Elisha. And she put the need of the servant of God before her own needs. She really wanted to know how could she serve God, and she found that she would serve God in saving his servant Elisha. And what she possessed which made her so rich, she shared with that servant of God, Elisha. He showed God love by saving Elisha, by making the needs of the servant of God not to be a burden in fulfilling his task in ministering to the people. And that is what we are challenged today, this morning, this week. That what is it that we perceive to be the need of the church? To be the need of the ministers of God. What is it that we can do to make their word light, to help them fulfill whatever that they need in order to carry out their task, like this wealthy woman did? And I would like to say to you, my brothers and sisters, that just as that woman acted in compassion, that she showed an act of charity towards Elisha, God will do the same to you and I, to us. As God said to her, I tell you, when the time comes, you shall embrace a son. I tell you, at this season, when the time comes around, you shall embrace a son. God would say to us, if we act in a similar way, in an act of charity, would say, I tell you, my brothers and sisters, I tell you, my son, I tell you, my daughter, that next year, this time, you would have your reward. Just by simply showing compassion towards those who need, to the church, to the ministers. By not asking God that, God, I do need this and that, but only by the act of charity that we show one another, that we show each other. God would see in us a good heart and effort of love. So it is a challenge that I'm putting to you and I this morning, that at least this week, could we do an act of love? Could we reflect and say, what is the need that the church needs? What is the need that its ministers need, in order that if I fulfill that act, I will ease their burden, I will help them in fulfilling the task which they have committed themselves to. As this wealthy woman did, help Elisha. how can you help the church? And so Christ says, as was done to this woman, he says to us in the gospel, he who receives you, who receives my church, who receives its ministers for my sake, I tell you, he shall not lose his reward. So, my brothers, these are the ways which Christ promises us, which God promises us, that if we act in charity, if we show compassion, surely we would not lose our reward. And so, my brothers, I would like to conclude by singing a hymn which reflect the very same passage, the first reading and our gospel, and say, as an act of prayer, that today, God, this is what we pledge to you in an act of love. That is our pledge, an act of love towards the church, towards the poor. That is what comes from our heart. That God, we pledge to show compassion. We pledge to help your church and its ministers.